All of this personal computer stuff is starting to make sense. Now you have a good idea what hardware is all about, and you even know about operating systems. And while technically they may not do anything useful, you do know that you need to use them almost daily when you work on a personal computer. But now we need to add that third component, software. Software is what we consider to do the useful stuff. And we'll talk about some of the different categories of software, as well as some universal skills that you'll need regardless of which programs you use. That way you'll be ready to use the software that comes installed on your computer, maybe even know that there are some other types of programs or applications that you want to get, either for your work or for your play. Regardless of what the use is, it's the software usually that we think of as the useful part of the computer, and it's really where a lot of the fun begins. So let's get ready to have some fun with software. We finally made it to component number 3. We've been through hardware, we've been through operating systems, and now to round out the big picture of a functional computer system, we have software. This is actually the useful stuff. Now, we've been working an awful long time with things that supposedly aren't useful, and that's why I kind of use this term kind of carefully. Operating systems are absolutely critical, and they do a lot of useful things like managing our files. But software is the stuff we typically think of as doing the things we like to do. Software is also generally going to do something specific for the user, such as send and receive email or track finances or something like that. Software can also be a suite of many different programs bundled together. For example, Microsoft Office is software, but it's not one software program, it's a package of multiple programs. Different versions of Office exist, but basically the Microsoft Office suite includes things like Access, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and Outlook. So those are 5 separate software programs that are bundled together. One of the nice features of using a suite of software products is that they are built or intended to work together. Now, a lot of times people don't do this, and I'll give you an example. Sometimes, especially in government, a lot of government agencies started using an email program called Lotus Notes or GroupWise, both very fine products. Then they wanted to use Microsoft Word, and it's not that they can't. But the fact is that if you use Exchange and Outlook for email, instead of one of those other products, it is intended to work together with Word. So you can do some very nice things, such as send an email directly from within Word without having to close Word and open a different piece of software. See what I mean? And it's not that I'm trying to promote one particular program over another. There are a lot of different suites out there. For example, there's the Corel WordPerfect suite that has many things in common as well. Just remember that if there is a suite of programs that they are designed to go together, and sometimes it can both offer you a functionality benefit as well as being a little less expensive than buying a bunch of separate programs. Also remember that each program can be very simple or it can be extensive. We've taken a look at the calculator, and the calculator, at least the first ones that came out, were very simple. It had the 4 basic functions of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and allowed you to enter digits. The calculator that now comes with Windows has been expanded, so now we have a scientific calculator. It will do different kinds of conversions, for example, between metric and US measurements and those types of things. The calculator, though, is still a fairly simple program as far as programs go. There are a lot of programs that are much more extensive. For example, there are some web programs that allow you to not only manage web pages but entire websites. It will track the content that's uploaded. It will track versioning, who changes things, when, and where it goes. And there's even approval, that not all content is perfectly seen the first time until it's actually approved by somebody. So as you can see, all of these different pieces of software can have a variety of different functions. They can be standalone programs or part of a suite, and each program can also be very simple or very extensive and complex. But they all still fall into the software category. Don't forget that software can also be called a program or an application. All 3 of these will be used interchangeably. What makes software work is that software contains some kind of programming in the background. Now, we're in a computer fundamentals class, so we certainly don't want to get into the different types of programming languages there are. But just know that that means that there are instructions that are used by the computer to complete certain tasks. If you want to send an email, you have to have something that understands what you're typing on the screen, can take that information, do all of the magic conversions that it needs to zap it across the virtual airwaves to the recipient, have it put back together, and appear to them as the same words, sentences, and paragraphs that you typed. If you think about that, that's really phenomenal, and that's why I get excited about software and really all of technology, because what we can do with it is really a phenomenal thing. By pressing a button, in just a few seconds, we can zap a message around the world and have it appear miraculously on somebody else's computer. That's cool. You also need to remember that some software may come preloaded on your computer, and others you need to purchase and install yourself. We've been working with some of the preloaded software that actually comes bundled together with the Windows operating system. Things like Notepad, WordPad, Calculator, and Paint. They are software. They're technically not the same as the Windows operating system, but they do come bundled with the operating system so that you have some functionality without having to purchase anything on your own. I'm sure that once you get going, though, on your computer, that you'll be purchasing some of your own software. That could be something like a game that you want to play. It also could be some productivity software like spreadsheets, word processing documents, or maybe you're going to go full-fledged out into multimedia and you want to get things that will allow you to burn and rip your own CDs or DVDs, or maybe even make movies. All of these are examples of software that you can purchase and install. Remember that regardless of which program it is you're using, there are several ways that you're going to launch them on a PC. There may be an icon or a shortcut found on the desktop. You also may find it in the Start menu. If it's not in the Start menu, from the Start menu, you can also go to All Programs and find it there. If you're using Windows Vista, or if you're using Windows 7, and even Windows XP, you may have the Quick Launch bar next to the Start button that allows you to have quick access to frequently used programs. And then you also may find them in an actual folder on the computer system itself, but that's probably going to be your last choice. And don't forget that with Vista and Windows 7, you also can search very quickly. If you know all or part of the name, just start typing and it will locate it for you. The actual file that launches a program usually ends in .exe. That's called an executable. An executable represents a program. What you need to know, though, is that most programs are not just that single file. They could be 1 or 10 or even hundreds or thousands of different files. As an example, Microsoft Office, when it's installed, is installed to its own folder in your Program Files folder. That goes on your hard drive. Now, I don't want you to memorize all of this, but just know that within the Microsoft Office folder, there are many, many different subfolders with literally hundreds of individual files. But it's the executable file that launches a program. For example, WinWord, WinWord.exe, is the single file that launches Microsoft Word. So if you ever see something that ends in .exe, you'll know that that's some type of a program. You can click on it if you know what it is, but you also need to be careful. If you ever receive an exe file in email and you don't know why you have it or who sent it to you, don't click on it, because that could be something malicious like a virus or something that's going to damage your computer. So once we know there's all of this software around, it kind of helps us to be able to put it into categories, because there's an awful lot of it out there. Categories are based on the common function, type, or field of use. For example, we can have system software. These are little programs that are used to monitor and manage computer files or networks. If you work in a business, your IT person will be very familiar with system software. They have all kinds of little gadgets and software that will allow them to monitor what's happening on the network, how much bandwidth is going on, who's logged onto the network, are there any computers that are problematic, those types of things. So that's system type software. Something beyond what we're going to talk about is known as programming tools. These are things that you actually use to write computer programs. Visual Basic is a very common programming language, as is C#, JavaScript, even HTML. These are all different programming languages. You also have compilers, which are what take all of the written instructions and put them together into a program that'll run. And a GUI editor, which is a graphical user interface editor, that allows you to edit things as well. Again, way beyond what we want to talk about, but just know that for all of the things that you see on your computer, somebody originally had to program it. And of course, there's software tools to allow them to do that. The one that we're probably most interested in right now is simply known as application software. This includes some subcategories. Word processors, spreadsheets, and presentation and email clients are all considered application software. This is where WordPerfect and the Microsoft Office suite fit in. Microsoft Word is a word processor, Microsoft Excel is a spreadsheet, PowerPoint is a presentation program, Outlook, GroupWise, and Lotus Notes are all email clients. One of the things that I started with is actually a database, which is also application software. Now, sometimes databases can be very high-end, and they can go up into the other two categories. But for most of our purposes, anything that manages data is a database-type application. For example, Microsoft Access. Then we have some of the fun stuff, things like page layout programs and multimedia that work with audio, video, and animation. Microsoft Publisher, Adobe InDesign, or for those of you who may have been around quite a while, we have things like PageMaker. They're all page layout programs. And these days, there is literally a ton of multimedia software out there, both for amateurs or entry-level people, all the way up to the pros. In short, though, you can now see what some of the main software categories are. In order to be able to select a piece of software, you need to know what type of work you want it to do, what the features are, and then pick one that's going to be appropriate for your use. There can be nothing more frustrating than buying the wrong software. If you're a professional in graphics, you'll probably be frustrated with an entry-level multimedia program. Conversely, if you're brand new to it and you open up something like some of the Adobe products, you'll probably be frustrated because they are so advanced and offer so many features that you probably won't know where to start. So it's all about making good choices. And believe me, there is software out there for everybody, for every use, at every level.